In 2006, Richard Linklater finally released his film adaptation of Philip K. Dick's novel, A Scanner Darkly, after numerous delays in post-production. In watching the final product, I'm sure you can see why. Shot on digital video in May of 2004, an obscure and distorted view of California by way of Austin, Texas shooting locations began filming. Linklater knew from the very beginning that he was going to animate on top of the shot footage using interpolated rotoscope animation. Rotoscoping footage involves meticulous detail and grueling workdays. The process requires animating over top of pre-recorded footage frame by frame. The result is a warbly, constantly evolving frame. Perspective is fluid and constantly shifting the setting as well as the characters moving throughout them.
We were thinking it was going to take about 350 man-hours per minute. We ended up being pretty off on that.
Richard Linklater was most likely inspired to take this more time-consuming route on post-production after working on his 2001 semi-experimental film, Waking Life, an anthology film of sorts exploring imaginary philosophical conversations had across a collection of dreams. Where Waking Life was going for a more internal approach, A Scanner Darkly looks to contort and bend reality around its main characters. The story is human, but the perspective in which we are viewing it has been clouded and perverted by prolonged drug use. A Scanner Darkly starts 7 years from now. An extremely powerful and hallucinogenic drug known as Substance D has left a quarter of America dependent. Bob Arctor, played by Keanu Reeves, is an undercover cop who may be in too deep. He has infiltrated a group of junkies, but in the process has become dependent on the drug that they were meant to dismantle. Arctor is now having problems discerning reality from his own internal interpretation of events.
Two hemispheres of my brain are competing?
Yes.
Since the police precinct does not know the identity of their undercover plants thanks to their imposed scramble suits, Arctor is told to spy on himself. Since his brain is so diluted, Arctor starts to separate his professional and personal self, believing they are both two different people. Linklater decided to animate the film for a couple of reasons. For one, he felt like there were very few animated movies at the time made for adults. Another reason was that Linklater felt as though the uncanny nature of the final product would aid in the unnatural worldview the characters have adopted thanks to their substance abuse. We would see what Bob Arctor's subconscious looks like without using dream logic. Too much. One may call the actions taken here overkill, an extravagant choice to make the movie harder to construct thanks to an eccentric filmmaker. But to Linklater, the rotoscope animation was the only way to tell this story.
I think every film you have in your head is just a challenge. To me, the director's job is like, well, how do you tell? There's a lot of stories. Think all the stories in the world. They're coming at you all the time. It's like, well, how to tell a story.
Upon its release, A Scanner Darkly was praised for its faithfulness to its source material. The literal text was not changed. Instead, the method in which the story was told turned out to be imaginatively displayed. An actor's performance was not the final say where the meaning was in any given scene. Now, acting details could be enhanced or downplayed at the whims of an animator. The cost of such a unique technique? A prolonged post-production process that doubled its initial schedule. What was meant to take 9 months to animate took 18, 350 hours per minute, turned into 500. In an interview with Ain't It Cool News, Linklater said the following: 500 hours of an artist's time to produce 1 minute of film. It's mind-boggling. At the end of the day, the animators spend much more time on the movie than I do. We shot in 23.5 days. It worked pretty quickly. Everything went very smoothly. The post-production was actually very difficult on a lot of levels. I'm glad we're finally done. I'm really happy with it though. The end result of this total control given to the animators is this melding of text and subtext. An actor can try to imbue a scene with subtext through performance, but in the case of A Scanner Darkly, the animators and director have final say. They control what the audience is ultimately seeing. Though it was a critical success, A Scanner Darkly was ultimately a box office bomb. Viewers were not interested in the twisty-turny worldview Linklater and company had produced. So what can we learn from this movie? Well, 14 years after its release, it seemed to have foreshadowed the reliance on animation studios both at an independent and major studio level. Back then, CGI animation was mostly reserved for action or children films made at a big studio level, but nowadays it's everywhere, from cosmetic touch-ups to de-aging, or even bringing an actor back from the grave. Much like an editor, a CGI animator can control just how much an audience thinks or feels about a specific moment. And just like editing, that means that this seeps into all other aspects of the creative process. What happens when you can't tell? If an audience member can't tell that it's computer generated, are they being unknowingly manipulated? Gone are the days of Hollywood superstars. Now we have actors who fit into scenes as if they're props. When you go to watch a Keanu Reeves film, are you going because you want to see Keanu Reeves or the famous characters that he plays? How does one movie star have total control over their visual identity now that a CGI animator can change it at a whim? What do they see? Do they see themselves, a cartoon, their likeness? And what does the viewer or scanner see? Were we meant to get this lost?
I'm supposed to act like they aren't here, assuming there's a they at all. It may just be my imagination. Whatever it is that's watching, it's not human. Unlike little dark-eyed Donna, it doesn't ever blink. What does a scanner see? Into the head? Down into the heart? Does it see into me? Into us? Clearly or darkly? I hope it sees clearly because I can't any longer see into myself. I see only Mark. I hope for everyone's sake the scanners do better. Because if the scanner sees only darkly the way I do, then I'm cursed, and cursed again, and will only wind up dead this way, knowing very little and getting that little fragment wrong.